Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're talking about survival, but not in the wilderness. We're talking about the digital world. We're going to break down exactly how the best organizations plan to survive the totally unexpected and, keep the lights on, even when disaster strikes. Okay, so to really get our heads around this, let's just dive right in with a scenario. It's a simple question, really, but it's one that every single organization out there needs to have a solid answer for. I want you to just imagine for a second. You walk into work one morning, grab your coffee, sit down, and nothing. Everything your organization relies on, we're talking email, customer data, all your internal systems, the whole shebang. It's just gone, vanished. Yeah, this isn't just some minor technical glitch. This is a full-blown crisis. And every single second of that silence, it's costing you money, it's costing you trust, and it's damaging your reputation. The clock is officially and very loudly ticking. So, how do you prepare for that kind of silence? Well, it's definitely not about just crossing your fingers and hoping it never happens. Nope, it's about having a rock-solid two-part survival plan ready to roll at a moment's notice. And that brings us to two really key ideas: business continuity and disaster recovery. Now, they might sound kind of similar, but they are critically different. Think of it like this. Business continuity is all about staying afloat during the storm, keeping the absolute essentials running. Disaster recovery, on the other hand, that's about rebuilding the ship after the storm has passed. And let me tell you, you absolutely need both. So first up, you've got the Business Continuity Plan, or BCP for short. This thing is the master playbook for the entire organization. It goes way beyond just the IT stuff. It asks those big, hairy questions like, how do we handle our finances? How are we going to talk to our customers? Basically, how do we keep the core business alive? And then, tucked right inside that master plan, is the Disaster Recovery Plan, or DRP. Now, this is the super focused technical guide for the IT department. Think of it as the step-by-step instruction manual for bringing all the technology, the servers, the data, the networks, back from the brink. Okay, so when a disaster actually hits, who does what? You can't just have everyone running around in a total panic, right? Let's take a look at how a structured, immediate response really unfolds. The very first move, step one, is to activate the recovery team. These are your organization's digital first responders. They've been pre-assigned, they're trained, and they are ready to take control of the chaos the second that alarm goes off. And this is the process they follow. And I want you to notice the logic here, because it's really important. It's not just some chaotic rush to fix things. It starts with communication, then it moves to safety and assessing the damage, and only then does the technical recovery actually kick in. You gotta know what you're dealing with before you can even think about fixing it. Right, so this whole recovery thing, it isn't magic. It requires having the right tools and the right infrastructure already in place before a disaster ever strikes. So what exactly are these tools for a digital comeback? First off, what if your main office is just gone, unusable? You need a safe place to rebuild. Now, take a look at this table. It shows the classic trade-off you have to make. On one end, you have a hot site. This place is fully configured, ready to go in minutes, but look at that cost, highest. Ouch. On the other end, you've got a cold site. It's basically an empty room with power and cooling. Super cheap, but it's going to take you weeks to get up and running. The right choice here depends entirely on one question. How fast do you absolutely need to be back online? All right, next up, you need your data back. This is your digital time machine, and just like the recovery site, it's all about trade-offs. A full backup, that's the fastest way to restore everything, but man, it eats up a ton of storage space. An incremental backup, on the other hand, saves you a ton of space, but the restore process is way slower. A hospital that needs immediate access to patient records might shell out for full backups, while maybe a marketing agency could get by with an incremental one to save some cash. Okay, and this is so important. A backup is completely useless if it gets destroyed in the same fire as your servers, right? Or if you can't find the right one when you're in a panic. So secure storage, we're talking off-site, locked down, protected from fire and water, and labeled properly, that's just non-negotiable. A brilliant plan that just sits on a shelf is really nothing more than expensive paper. To make sure it actually works when you need it most, you have to test it. It's just like a fire drill. And testing doesn't have to be some massive, scary ordeal. You can start small with something called a tabletop exercise. Honestly, just think of it as a guided conversation. The team gets together in a conference room and just talks through a disaster scenario, step by step. It's an amazing way to find the first, most obvious holes in your plan. So once just talking it through feels pretty comfortable, you can level up to a functional exercise. This is where theory really meets practice. People get their hands dirty and actually perform their recovery tasks, but in a safe, simulated environment. It's all about testing the actions, not just the ideas. And then there's the big one, the full-scale exercise. This is the ultimate test, the live fire drill for your entire IT infrastructure. You're using real equipment, real personnel, and simulating the disaster as closely as you possibly can. Yeah, it's high stakes and it's intense, but it is the only way to know for sure if your plan can actually withstand reality. Now, after every single test, and I mean everyone, from the simplest tabletop discussion to that full-scale drill, the most critical step is this right here, the after-action report. This is where you get brutally honest and analyze what worked, what broke, and how you can make the plan even stronger. See, learning from your mistakes in practice is what prevents total failure in a real crisis. Okay, we've covered the crisis, the detailed plan, the tools you need, and the absolute importance of practice. So let's bring this all home and boil it down to one final, simple question. So really, the key takeaway from all of this is this checklist right here. Just look at these questions. Do you actually know the threats to your business? Is your recovery team defined, and do they know their roles? Do you test your plan? If you can confidently say yes to all of these, hey, you're in a really great position. But if you see any no's in there, well, now you know exactly where you need to start. And that just leaves us with this one final thought. A disaster doesn't make an appointment. It doesn't check your calendar. See, preparation isn't about trying to predict the future. It's about building resilience so you can face the future, whatever it throws at you. So the real question isn't if something's going to happen, but when, and will you be ready?